Hey, welcome back, everybody. Yesterday, I'd done a little piece about the high-speed bypass valve. I just have been having some problems, and I couldn't figure it out. I finally kind of stumbled across the problem, so I thought I would share it with you. So I did a piece yesterday. We talked about the high-speed bypass, some problems I found inside with some corrosion. This one has a ball and a spring on it, unlike the idle bypass, which has a poppet and a spring, or the main jet, which has a poppet and a spring. But during the course of my discussion yesterday, I had mentioned that obviously you got to go back after you put it all back together, you make your repair, you have to readjust the pressure. So this particular one is different than many. It has a threaded insert in it. I can actually tighten it up, compress the spring, increase the pressure, or back it off, loosen the spring up, reduces the pressure that it activates at. Unlike some of them, you have a fixed spring and you have to adjust the pressure by adding or deleting shims to it. And then there's also another type, the newer ones, which are a more of a diaphragm type. But I wanted to go show guys how to set up the pressure on this for those of you, there may be a couple that aren't really sure how to do that. So I'm going to do that in this segment. So here we go. We're going to get started right now. Here we go. Okay, so here we go. This is the high-speed bypass that we talked about a couple of times. It is adjustable, and I'll show you that here in a second. This just comes off of here like this. We talked about this in yesterday's video. Inside, of course, is the adjustment. So what we want to do is we've put the new ball in there that we talked about yesterday in the repair that we did. So we've got the new ball, the spring is in there, and now we have an adjustment. So we want to set this up now for our release pressure. When we get to the high speed, when we want the fuel to taper off a little bit, we want to set the pressure that this actually cracks open and starts releasing that pressure, which goes through the jet, whatever jet you determine is appropriate. So to do that, we're going to use our leak down tester. So remember, this leak down tester is the one that I built, and I talked about how I built it and why it is the way it is, and why I think it's better than some of the commercial off-the-shelf ones in video segment number 2 of my fuel injection series. You can go look at that. This has little digital gauges on it. We press that, and it lights it up like that. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to take this. Now I want to be able to connect this. So I also talked about this adapter that I put together, and actually I made a mistake in my explanation in the video on this particular one. This is just a -6 coupler, and I've got just the quick disconnect, mailed quick disconnect in there. And I had said something about this being 3/8 national pipe. It obviously isn't. This is a quarter pipe, and the threads are not exact to the -6. They're very, very close, but not exact. But what I did is I just wrapped some Teflon tape around there and put that in there. It doesn't leak, and I keep this around the shop. I can use it for doing my leak down test on the barrel valve, and I can also use it for my cans. So now the problem with this one is, this is the pressurized side, and of course this is the release side. But since this screws into the side of the pump, it's not a -6 AN, it's a -6 ORB. It's got an O-ring boss on it. So there's no taper at the end. So if I try and put this in here like this, hold on, I get it. If I just try and screw it in like that, the taper won't meet. You can see it flops around. It's going to leak like a sieve. So a little trick to do is I got this little guy, right? This is a little O-ring, and I just drop that down in there, push it down in, and it actually seals it for this particular test. Now that we're only using it for a test, we wouldn't use this for flight. Yeah, some old soda guy. I say flight. We wouldn't use this for configuration on our race car, with an O-ring like that. But for this test, it's plenty sufficient. We just don't want it to leak air out of there. So now we're going to take our leak down tester, pop that in there like this, Okay. And I don't know if you got a big enough field of view there. And then what we're going to do is I got my big old fat screwdriver, and we're going to go down in there and we're going to adjust this and watch the right hand gauge. I'm going to set this up so I put like 100 psi or whatever in here. Whatever this gauge reads is what is leaking out of this end. So let me get that. Let me get some air on this guy. Got a hose back here. And just plug this guy in. Now hopefully, all right, we'll look at this gauge and this gauge. All right, it's actually already set up. I got like 98. Now, that's my source pressure. We're not measuring flow here. This is just goes through the orifice to reduce the flow a little bit. But the 47 that it's showing right now, that's where this is opening up at. So what I'm going to do, and I was hoping that wouldn't happen, but I'm going to go in here and I'm going to turn this and watch. I'm cranking it, turning it, turning it. We're still turning. I want to set this at 85 to start with. So I'm almost there. I got to back it off a little bit now. Trying to get my screwdriver back in that slot there. Oh. All right, so I'm at 85. So that's just me turning this screwdriver and turning that screw down in there. So I can feel, you know, the air coming out of there. This gauge doesn't really matter what this says over here. It's still at 100. We don't care about this other than we have sufficient pressure to set this. All right, so that's drifted off a little bit. I'm going to get it just another little tiny, just a little bump. That is a tiny bit of a turn. Makes a big difference here when you get up to this level. All right, I think that's about as good as close as I can get it. Okay, so now, sorry about the noise of the compressor, but that's all I've got. So we've set this up now for our 85 psi. So when this hits a fuel pressure of 85 pounds, that valve will start relieving. Now, I had a comment from somebody that said, well, you're doing it the wrong way. You can take a hose and drop it in a bucket of water and see when it starts to bubble. It's like, yes, I know we've done that for 1,000 years that way. However, when you have the gauge on there, whatever that gauge is reading, that's dead nuts. That's where it is starting to leak off at. It's going to hold that pressure at that level. So, I mean, you use a bucket of water if that's what you got. But this is a very accurate way of doing it. And so you take that, put it back together now. This just threads in there like that. Snug it down. We're gonna gently put a wrench on here and snug it up. We can put a little tape on the thread on the hex so we don't like mar it up too much. But anyhow, that's how you set it up. So then, of course, when you're running the motor and you get to the high end, you can watch your wide bands and such. And if you're on the high end of the motor and you still got too much fuel, you know, it's running leaner, or I'm sorry, richer than you want, then you would back this pressure off a little bit. Or maybe make the pill a little tiny bigger in diameter there, which would just drain off a little bit more fuel a little faster. So anyhow, that's the gig on setting up the pressure on these. All right, so I apologize for the noisy compressor. You know, I just have a small little pancake one. I just did it here in my garage, my shop. So it doesn't have a lot of volume in the tank, so as soon as you drain it down a little bit, it fires up. So, but I hope you could hear me over it. I think you probably could. But it's real easy to make that adjustment. And of course, if you had a diaphragm type, you could do the same thing. You hook it up with your leak down tester, adjust it to where that right hand gauge would read exactly the pressure that it's going to pop off at. So that's all I got for today. I hope it helps somebody out there. Don't forget, like and subscribe if any of my videos are useful to you. I appreciate any comments as well. Maybe something that I said that you don't agree with, or I didn't get, that I got wrong. Just let me know. Thanks, and I hope you guys have a great day. Keep these mechanical fuel injections running. They're awesome. They're so much fun. All right, take care.